Yo, what's going on? It's your main man, Rick the Dawn. Hey, this episode is brought to you by wordy.com. That is my social media website. Go check it out. All right, so I finally watched episode three, and let me tell you, this was a really tough one to watch. Okay, this one was very dramatic. It starts off with John or Coach John Mosley, looking at a truck that apparently crashed down a mountain, and somehow him and his family walked away unscathed. Now, obviously, I'm not here to preach to anybody, but this is the benefit of being someone who serves and believes in Jesus Christ. Okay, if you look at the truck, go look at the truck. If you haven't seen it already, just Google it. Possibly, you could probably Google it. But go look at that truck and tell me how many people. It was what, four people in the car. Tell me how many broken bones, how many deaths you expected to come from that particular incident. And the fact that they all walked away unscathed, I think that tells you that, whoever John believes in protects him. All right. And I just so happen to believe in that same amazing God. And I've been through situations to this effect. And I can attest to how amazing Jesus is. Look, and it's crazy because John in this episode talks about singing a song in which he tells God to consume him. And if you don't know what that means, it's just saying, God, you can use me as a vessel. You can use me. You see a lot of rappers do it in terms of like Satanism. It's kind of unfortunate, but it's the truth. They get possessed by demons. A lot of the rappers now call themselves demons. So they do it all the time. Why do you think they blurt out so much filth and garbage and sex? And it's because they're being consumed, but by a different source. So it's the same thing. It's just, John and I, we choose to allow God, Jesus, Jehovah Jireh to consume us. That's probably why I'm even giving you this message, because I'm being consumed. Am I? But no, it was kind of cool to see that. And John did open up about that. I did not think he would speak on this in this episode, but him and his family were singing a song of, God consume me, Father consume me. And he said he saw a black cloud. And I know what that black cloud was. I know what it was. All right. He saw a black cloud go past him. And he said he heard something tell him to stop, something tell him to be quiet or something like that. And just as that voice hit his ear, that's when the truck tumbled, fell off the hill or what have you. I'm not sure of the details of the accident. But one thing I do know, that demons, devils, they can't harm God's children, all right, unless given permission to do so for some other specified reason. Maybe the Lord wants to show his power through a particular trial. In this case, in my personal opinion, I saw the power of God by looking at that truck and realizing that four people was in that truck and none of them got hurt. So that was the power of God on John's life. And I believe God certainly used John to show the power of God. Now you can look at that truck and say, well, that happens all the time. Trust me, people pass away from smaller accidents. The fact that four people made it through that is crazy. Now, that's about all that I have in terms of the gloating and the nice things I want to say about Coach John, because this episode certainly allowed me to see a lot of the flaws in his coaching. They had a game this I think it was against Riverside, and Riverside on paper, or at least based on what I was able to look at and see on the screen, they did not come across as a difficult team or a powerhouse. In fact, I believe during the show we hear that their record is 6-4. So obviously you are what your record says you are, and 6-4 is slightly above average, whereas ELAC came in with a record of 8-2. All right, well above average. And I can't tell you how bad this game was. It was poorly coached. And to watch Coach Mosley get so upset at the players at the end of the game, it was difficult. I'm going to tell you, it was very difficult because, one thing about being a head coach, you have to first reflect upon your mistakes. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is all but impossible for coaches to do that. It often takes losses, it takes reflection, it takes video to see how bad you are, because there's no one there to check you. The players can't check you because you're going to, as a coach, look at that as disrespect. But the game that they lost, Riverside, that was a coaching flaw. Whether it was trusting too much in certain players, you had DC, you had Shemar on the bench complaining. That should have been stopped. Like, hey, guys, I got you. Or, just addressed. And I think Coach Mosley is bull-headed to the point where, he gets stuck in his ways. One, he doesn't adjust. Two, he's very, very emotional. And I did not expect to say that in this reaction, but he's extremely emotional, and it's really his passion because he used to play the game. But there is no satisfying him. And I understand why, because he's playing a role. Most coaches are actors, right? We love our players, but we have to act like we don't. We care about our players, but we have to act like we don't. Why? Because we don't want to show weakness, because we want a strong team. If you're out there patting guys on the back, hey man, I love you, guys. You make it home safe. You're going to create softer players, and as such, those teams that are being pushed by tougher coaches, those coaches, right? They don't accept, they expect perfection. Those coaches are pushing their players, and you're culling yours. You already know what's going to happen on that basketball court or that football field, for that matter. So, as coaches, you have to do a lot of acting, and I think that I believe that John is starting to be consumed by the role. I'm not even sure he's acting anymore. I think that he truly believes that all the mistakes that's happening is coming from the players. There was one moment of reflection in this episode in which he said, "I have to coach better." He said that, and I was so happy he said that. I'm like, yes, John, you do have to coach better. You have to dig into that lineup and figure out what nuances you can manipulate. Anytime you're losing, that's the evidence that you're doing something wrong, is it not? And I believe that Coach Mosley doesn't quite realize that. Now, this episode also focused on Shemar, and I've said it already. I'm not on the bandwagon of Shemar. If you don't know who that is, it's this gentleman here. I'm not on the bandwagon. At the start of the season, he talks about feeling like he could play better than LeBron if he's in the mood, if he's if he's feeling his rhythm and things like that. And I'm not even tripping off of that. I like that type of confidence. But for me, he is a distraction, because that's the overarching theme. Is he the answer, or is he a distraction? I'm going to go with distraction. The only reason I know that is because I used to coach, and I've had players like Shemar on my team and on my bench, because what they fail to understand is, as coaches, we know your flaws. You might be good in pickup basketball. You might be good in a one-on-one game, but you don't. That doesn't the skill set doesn't carry over in a what do you call it, in a organized basketball game like DC. Earrings, all that kind of stuff. That's cool if you're going to have a camera, watching you as you shoot shots, but while you're playing by yourself, for your TikTok. But in a organized game, that type of stuff is not what it is. And I'm sure that Coach Mosley is watching these guys in practice. He's seeing the same flaws, and he's probably like, he just doesn't trust them. Usually, a player doesn't get PT or playtime if the coach doesn't trust him. He doesn't understand the the um what do you call these things? A coach wouldn't play a player if he doesn't understand his I forget the word, and I hate that I can't remember his word. It's such an easy word. I want to say routines, but it's a better word than that. But if a coach can't predict your style of play, they will more than likely sit you down, because they need people that are predictable. All right. If your gameplay is not predictable, like, okay, I know what he does. I know what his I can't remember his word. I know his somebody help me with this freaking word. I know somebody watching this know the word I'm looking for. I don't know his what's that word, y'all? Come on, help me out. Anyway, I forget the freaking word. I'm so irritated. I'm gonna remember the word in like 5 minutes. But the thing about it is, Shemar, I'm assuming that he's not giving Coach Mosley what he needs in terms of, I know what he's gonna do. All right, I know his what is that word? It's bothering me. It's like really throwing me off. But anyway, forget it. I quit. So I think that's what it is. And it made me think back to when I was coaching. I had players who are very upset. And the other thing about it is, coaches have rotations. They have, if you have 14 players on a team, they might have about a good 7-man rotation. And I really hate to say that, because there's another 7 players that's going to sit there, and a lot of times they feel that their hopes and dreams are just dashing. And I know how that feels as well, because I played on a football team, and I never got in as the wide receiver, even though I was like one of the best catchers I knew. Even in practice, I made the starter look pretty bad, because I could play wide receiver and defensive back, but he would never let me in. And I always made excuses. I said, that's because, the wide receiver is the coach's son. And while that might have been true, it was deeper than that. It's like the coach couldn't trust me. playtime is depending on trust. Whether it's and for Shemar and DC, okay, they got the game, they can shoot, they can do all the school stuff. But here's where the coach can't trust you or trust them. It's in the fact of your attitude. You see, they're on the bench crying and whining, they talking slick. That deteriorates trust right there. DC, young, he's young acting as well. It's one thing to be young, but it's another thing to be young and young acting. And I believe that causes mistrust. Like, I can't trust him out there. He's going to go out there. He's going to create a turnover. One thing that basketball coaches hate more than anything on the planet is losing possession. And I'm sure that he's seen a lot of sloppy play from DC, doing acrobatic stuff, trying to look good. As he said with Shemar, posing while the game is in play. Those things create mistrust. So if there's a basketball player watching this and you want more PT, you have to earn the trust of your coach by just being mature and making wise and smart decisions. That's really what it boils down to. I remember guys on my bench. I just couldn't trust them, and it's like, one thing you have to keep in mind as well is, trust is not only earned on the basketball court. Trust is something that is always in process. Whether you showed up to practice on time, did you come to practice on time? That creates trust. How are your grades? That creates trust. Oh, I got a call from your teacher or email from your teacher. That's mistrust right there. Because that person is causing undue stress on the coach, instead of worrying about schematics and rotations and different plays and backdoor options and all that. He has to answer an email about you skipping class. That creates mistrust. You always arguing with your teammates. That's mistrust. When you get the ball, you don't listen. You just start doing random things. That's mistrust. And you can just tell that DC fits that to a T. All right. As far as Shemar, I know what kind of player Shemar is. Shemar is a person that is naturally gifted. He's naturally gifted. And sometimes when you have a player that is naturally gifted, they don't work on that gift. They don't iron it out. They don't process it and keep, manufacturing it and making it better, because it's so natural. It comes so easy to them. And, unfortunately, because of that mindset, I don't really have to work as hard. Because of that mindset, he probably won't make it into the league. He probably won't make it as a starter, even on the JUCO level, despite how talented he is. Here's what he's missing. He does have the basketball ability, but that's like 1 out of 10 things that you need as a player. Okay, as a basketball player, yes, you need to know how to shoot and dribble. We get that. But you got to have the right attitude. You got to have the right grades. And we're not even talking about A's and B's. We're talking about just get C's. You can even, I believe at the college level, a D is passing. And I know because I passed some classes with a D grade. So you can't even get that. So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, athleticism. Yes, I get it. Good attitude. You need that as a basketball player. Grades. You need that. Punctuality. You got to be on time. Leadership. So it's more than just being able to dribble and shoot. And with a player like Shemar, I think that he doesn't understand that. He only looks at, I can hoop. I can hoop. So what? That's not what it's about. You know how many players are actually better than Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Kobe Bryant? It's a lot of them. But you want to know what the difference is? These guys have more than just basketball ability. You can see it in Michael Jordan. He's very structured, very savvy, very intelligent, a leader, confident, respectful. He doesn't put all his business out on social media. I mean, you couldn't tell me what Michael Jordan is doing right now, because you don't know. You don't know. No IG. So he's just a mature individual, right? So that is what these players are missing, and it's only getting worse with this generation. This generation is losing the technical aspects of being a player. It's not about just shooting and it's not about that. Do you play defense? Do you get decent score? Do you pass your classes? Are you respectful to adults? These are the very fundamental things that every basketball player needs to have. And I think players like Shemar just don't have it. Do you use proper language? Because I'm listening and I'm watching episode 3 and I see Shemar and DC on the bench, N-word this, cuss word that. It's like, stop listening to rap. Please give it a break. And because what it's doing is deprogramming the intelligence of these individuals. It's like You can't just, it's not normal to walk around cursing. It's not normal. That's like kind of like a lowbrow thing. That is something that the lower levels of society indulge in. You know, the higher levels of society, is at least my opinion, that they use proper language because they're educated. Okay, educated people don't curse every sentence. That's not a normal thing. Okay, and I don't care what rapper tells you different. So that's my point. So I believe Shemar, he's a distraction on the account that he's only good at one of the five things that it's not really five. It's more like 100. But he's only good at one or two of the things that he needs to be good at. Okay, you can shoot, you can dribble. Awesome, great. But can you lead? Can you play defense? Can you hustle? Can you pass your classes? Can you get to practice on time? Can you actually block out your life's problems? Can you do those things? All right. Can you break up a fight? You see what I'm saying? These are the things that Shemar doesn't have. And I think, unfortunately, he's gonna be, and I love you know, I love the group of men that are around him, because I believe that they, if he listens, that's another thing. Can you listen? Can you listen? Can you take constructive criticism? Can you take unconstructive criticism? Can you take angry criticism? Can you take loud criticism? All those things is what you're going to need to be successful as an athlete. Now, I will say again, going back to Coach Mosley really stunk the place up this episode after the loss to Riverside. He's pacing back and forth. He has to go, the guys go practice right after the game. I've never been a big fan of that, but I respect it though. All right, having the guys practice after the game, I respect it. And you know, he's heated. And as a coach, from coach to coach, I felt like he really dropped the ball with his players. And see, the difference is I coach lower, you know, younger players. He's coaching grown men. So I have to realize that there's some things about what he's doing I don't understand. So that's the first thing. I'm going to show some humility myself and say, I don't understand what it feels like to coach another grown man. I've never had that experience. And perhaps what he's doing is exactly what he needs to be doing. But here's the facts. The facts is Coach Mosley has never won a state championship. So that means one thing. He's doing something wrong. And what I'm trying to do is I'm looking at what I'm seeing and perceiving to be wrong and saying these are maybe perhaps possibly the reasons why it's not happening. You're too angry. And as a Christian man to another Christian man, go read what the Bible says about anger. You can't do, you're never going to be successful being angry. I don't care if it's passion angry. Have angry, have passion. I don't care if it's that. At the end of the day, anger never is the solution. It's rarely the solution. It can happen. You know, we're all natural and human beings. Things do provoke us, but I'm just speaking in general. Usually, anger doesn't work. And in this episode, we see a lot of moments where he's upset. I do not agree with screaming in the ears of your players. Like we had Shemar, he was taking some shots. Coach Mosley is like, make the shot, you know, right next to him. And Shamar's a big guy. And he like even got a little startled because, you know, you can be the toughest guy in the world, but somebody's screaming in your ear. I don't know if that works. I'm not sure if this is chaos by design, meaning that he's trying to employ some of those military tactics. Okay, fine. Maybe so. But if he is not doing that and he's like, I'm just trying to get my team ready, basketball team, I'm not sure this is gonna do it. And you saw what happened. Brian didn't respond to it well. Brian actually almost quit. He left the gym, and Coach Mosley did something that I've done before. Like, don't come back. I've been there before, because you're so passionate as a coach, and you don't feel that your players are as passionate. I've had moments like that where I kick players out, like, you got to go because you playing the dozens and joning and talking about your own teammate, and we got this game coming up in about 3 days. So obviously we're not on the same level in terms of intensity. So you got to go. I've been there. I guess the difference is Coach Mosley threw in a lot of explicit words and raised the volume about tenfold. And Brian ended up leaving, and he was ready to quit the team. Now, one of the highlights of this episode is Coach Ken, which is a assistant coach, talking to Brian, and he kept it so funky with him. And you know, he's from Detroit, so I understood his mentality. I understood his mannerisms. When he said, he looked him right in his eyes. He said, you know, no matter where you go, you're gonna always be in the S word with somebody. And if you mess up here, you're gonna F up your life. I love hearing him say that because that is the absolute truth. These players, they think that they're owed something, and they're not. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Do your job. Nobody cares about your emotions. Nobody cares what you're sacrificing. Nobody cares who you're losing. Nobody cares who you're missing. Nobody cares who you lost as a kid. Nobody cares about your dead. Nobody cares. Get to work. That's the mentality of the world when it looks at these people, myself, anybody. No one cares. So what you gonna do? What you gonna do? You gonna quit? Is that going to make things better? Of course it's not. You're going to compound your problems. Now, what was a small issue has been put it now is maximized, and you've only made your situation worse. So I really enjoy seeing Coach Ken just tell him straight up, like, look, I know you mad, and as I said earlier, doing anything from the frame of anger never works ever. Okay, so he told him, I know you're mad, but if you leave out them doors, you're gonna F up your life. And it's like, I know you're young, and I know that you think you got all the juice, but if you leave out them doors, I'm gonna tell you right now, your life is over. I love hearing him say that. And Brian, because I'm assuming he's intelligent enough to understand Coach wouldn't lie to me. He knows something I don't know. And in that moment, he shows humility, right? He shows humility and he listens. He doesn't talk. And that's the problem, too. A lot of players don't know how to listen. You got two ears, one mouth for a reason. All right. So that you're listening twice as much as you speak. And the fact that he closed his mouth and showed respect to an elder, he went back in that gym and humbled himself and did what he had to do. I just didn't like the fact that Coach Mosley was yelling at his players. It's like, what response are you expecting from what you're doing right now? Okay, because Brian's response was completely in order. These are grown men. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, they're younger than Coach Mosley, but these are grown men. Okay, and Coach Mosley wouldn't allow somebody to scream in their face for any reason, basketball or no, otherwise. So I was, from coach to coach, I was just wondering, like, what response is he expecting? And I'm not sure he was being fair to his players. If you're going to be in their face screaming at them, what are you expecting, coach? That's the first problem, right? If you want to win, screaming and crying about it is not going to fix it, is it? Right? And what playbook is that going to be a valid response? All right, we're losing by 5. All right, guys, we're going to go out there. We're going to scream and cry, okay? And yell, okay? You go over to that corner, scream and cry. You go over there and scream and cry. That's never going to fix it. So that's what I was saying. Like, coach is making a big mistake with that particular approach. What he has to do is watch film, talk with his guys. I also will put this out there. His assistant coaches, though I love them, especially Coach Rob, they have to do a better job at checking the head coach. Maybe they don't want to do it on camera. Fine, I respect that too. But do it off camera. Coach, you're wrong. You can't scream at these men like that and expect them to react. And if you go scream at them, let them know that you're screaming at them because you're passionate. Make sure you specify that, because if you don't, you're gonna chase away your talent. And I think Coach can tell him if he haven't already told him. But one more thing I want to talk about before I conclude this reaction is how impressed I was with Desmond, man. He showed this guy right here, man, Desmond Washington. He doesn't get enough credit. He doesn't get enough credit. He's the only returning player from season 1. And let me just tell you, the game, I think I saw 2 games this episode. It was 2 games. I want to say 2 games. They lost Riverside, but it was a game they played before Riverside, unless I'm mistaken. But I think I just watched it, and I think I'm pretty sure. Desmond went off, man. Yeah, it was the game where he hit what 3 threes in a row, and what did he do? He was posing, he didn't get back on defense, and coach grilled him for it. And I was very mixed in my emotions on that particular moment. Hey, coach, he's the leading scorer. He just hit 3 threes in a row, and y'all won the game. And the first thing coach does is tears him down. And I said, coach, I get what you're saying. I get where you're coming from. You don't. He's the leader. You don't want people to emulate what he's doing, or do you? Right? Do you not want your players to be accurate from 3? Do you not want them to show confidence once they're showing that they can play this game and they're employing the things that you taught them? You don't want them to be confident. I know what coach is afraid of. He's afraid of his players getting loose, so loose that they fall apart. But you saw what happened the next game against Riverside. All right, being tight and constricted, does it really help? Did it help in that game? No. I think if he would have embraced the fact that Desmond was so happy, so joyful about his performance, I think if he would have embraced that more, leaned into it more, just gave him some dap, like, man, you played a heck of a game. You'll be surprised how far encouragement goes. Encouragement versus beratement. What's gonna lift a person up more? So you do a good job on the quiz. You get an A on your quiz, and when you get home, your mom says, or your dad, it's usually dad. You come home, your dad says, "Son, you did a heck of a job, man. Man, what you want? You want some McDonald's? Let's go get something to eat, man. You did a heck of a job. I'm so proud of you, son. Is that gonna do it, or is it, man? Put your hand down, man. You think because you got an A on one quiz that's gonna do it? You got another quiz next week. One A on one quiz that don't mean nothing, son. All right, which one is going to encourage the player to do better? And that's where Coach Mosley absolutely dropped the ball, man. I just wanted to get into the screen and say, Coach, you're doing a terrible job. And that's coming from a fan. I'm a fan of Coach Mosley, but I have to call a spade a spade. He did a terrible job in this episode as a coach. Period. Period. And I love Coach Mosley, not only as a Black American friend, brother, rather, not only as a coach to coach, but as a Christian, even not only as a Christian to Christian, bro. Love him. I love him on all different cylinders, but he dropped the ball as a basketball coach, and that's just my personal opinion. Okay. Yeah, he really showed what I would call inexperience. I forget the team. I want to say it was San Francisco. San Francisco, they have all these banners in their gym from winning championships, right? And you can tell that they're coached by white Americans. Listen, man, this ain't about passion and anger. The reason they have all those banners is not because they're passionate, not because they're angry. It's because they go to the lab and they figure out the X's and the O's. And that's what Coach Mosley is missing. He thinks that this game is, being passionate and caring a lot is going to mean it don't mean nothing. This is basketball. Passion would probably work if it was a screaming competition, but this is a basketball game that takes understanding of the X's and O's. It takes understanding. It takes execution. Those type of things are best employed when you're working from a frame of consistency, calmness, and I will say visualization. Like you're visualizing what's going to, you can see it before it happens. Anger and passion doesn't really matter that much in this particular situation. So I'll say it. Shout out to Desmond Washington for a heck of a game. And then the next game against Riverside, he still showed up. He played his butt off, man. And I did not think he would be that kind of player. I thought he was a what's his name? Dennis Rodman type of player. Gets a lot of rebounds, doesn't score. Or a Draymond type of player. Can kind of, just be in the right places at the right time, get some steals. Man, that boy became a scorer right before my eyes. And I was just like, in my heart, just clapping like, good job, man. I didn't know you had that. And I like the two backstories they showed of Shemar. I didn't, know that he was 6'2" in the sixth grade, for crying out loud, scored 53 points in one game. That was insane to see that from a sixth grader, a dunking sixth grader. He was being called Baby LeBron. He's from Akron, Ohio. I want to say Akron, Ohio, right? So I didn't know that. That was pretty dope to see. And now I understand, or rather seeing that helped me understand why he feels so entitled. But unfortunately, my main man, Shemar, I love you, bro, but that happened in the sixth grade. And nobody cares about that. You think so? They don't, man. Well, nobody cares about what Michael Jordan or LeBron James did in the sixth grade. Nobody talks about it. It doesn't matter. It's about consistency. Can you do it again? Can you do it again? What have you done for me lately? It's the way that this world functions. What have you done for me lately? Oh, you ain't did nothing in a couple of days? You washed up. That's this world that we live in today. It's a microwave society. And if you don't make it, if you don't show it every time, nobody cares. But watching Desmond interact with his son, interact with his girlfriend, it was pretty dope. You can tell he's struggling, having an internal struggle with being a child, being a basketball player, being a grown man. He has all these different things he has to juggle. And I think that it's trial by fire. Like he is ready, but he's not ready. You know what I'm saying? Like you saw several times in this episode where he's playing NBA 2K and his son is like on the bed. His priorities is like he's just trying to figure it out. And I enjoy seeing that because that's very real. It's a very real thing when you have a child when you're pretty young. I think he was what 17. I forget what he said when he had his son. I think he said 17, and that's a very young age to have a responsibility like taking care of a child. So it was pretty cool to see that. But the boy went off though. He went off this episode. I did not expect that, and he plays a lot of NBA 2K, which I would say, hey, maybe there's something there. Playing video games, other sport that you play in real life is like practicing on a different or in a different type of way. But yeah, that's it, man. I'm done with this episode. I really enjoy episode 3, and I can't wait to check out episode 4. If you enjoyed this commentary, you know what you got to do. Make sure that you like the video, and I'll come back and kick with you on the next one. But anyway, peace. Thank you.